The coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but I kept my hands wrapped around the mug anyway. It was 3 a.m., and I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at a stack of bank statements that didn't make sense. Numbers that refused to add up no matter how many times I ran them through my head. I'm an accountant. Numbers are supposed to make sense to me. My name is Claire Donovan, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. I was 42, married to my college sweetheart for 18 years, and we had built what everyone called a picture-perfect life in our suburban Denver neighborhood. My husband Michael was a software engineer at a major tech company. We had a beautiful 15-year-old daughter named Sophie who excelled at everything she touched. We took vacations to national parks. We hosted backyard barbecues. We were, by all external measures, winning at life. But there's something about the middle of the night that strips away all the comfortable lies we tell ourselves during the day. I had noticed the distance between Michael and me, growing for about 2 years. At first, I attributed it to the normal ebb and flow of a long marriage. He was working late more often. He seemed distracted during dinner. He stopped asking about my day. When I tried to initiate conversations about us, about our relationship, he would brush me off with generic reassurances. Everything's fine. Just stressed about work. You're overthinking things. I wanted to believe him. It's easier to believe the comfortable lie than to dig for an uncomfortable truth. The bank statements in front of me told a different story. I had stumbled onto them by accident. Michael usually handled all our online banking, but I needed to pull some tax documents and logged into our joint account. That's when I saw the pattern. Regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize. $500 here, $1,000 there. Always on the 15th of the month, like clockwork, for the past 3 years. 3 years. I had done what any accountant would do. I followed the money. The transfers went to an account under a business name, Clearwater Consulting, LLC. A quick search showed it was registered to a residential address across town. I sat with that information for 2 days, turning it over in my mind, trying to find an innocent explanation. Maybe it was a legitimate business expense. Maybe he was investing in something and wanted to surprise me. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation that would make me feel foolish for doubting him. But the transfers always happened on the 15th. Always the same amount. Always to the same place. That's not how investments work. That's how support payments work. On the 3rd day, I did something I never thought I would do. I drove to the address. It was a modest townhouse in a neighborhood that was nice but not extravagant. Middle class, comfortable, the kind of place a single parent might afford if they had some help. I sat in my car across the street for 20 minutes, my heart hammering against my ribs, before a woman emerged from the front door. She was younger than me. Maybe early 30s. She had dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and wore scrubs, like she worked in healthcare. And she was holding the hand of a little boy who looked about 7 years old. The boy had Michael's eyes. The same unusual gray-green color that I had always found so distinctive. The same slightly upturned nose. The same way of tilting his head when he was thinking. I watched them get into a Honda Civic and drive away. Then I sat in my car and cried until I couldn't breathe. That was 6 months ago. And I hadn't told anyone. The weight of keeping that secret had been slowly crushing me. Every morning I woke up next to Michael. Every evening I made dinner for our family. Every weekend I smiled at neighborhood gatherings. And the entire time, I was carrying the knowledge that my husband had another child. A son he had never mentioned. A woman he had been supporting for years with money from our joint account. I had become an expert at pretending everything was normal. I kissed him goodbye when he left for work. I asked about his day. I maintained the illusion because I didn't know what else to do. The thought of blowing up our life, of telling Sophie that her father had been living a double life, of admitting to everyone that our marriage was built on lies, it all felt too enormous to face. So I carried it alone. And it was destroying me. I had started making mistakes at work, simple calculation errors that I never would have made before. I had lost 12 pounds because food tasted like cardboard. I couldn't sleep more than a few hours a night. My hands shook when I was alone. I had developed a habit of checking my reflection in every mirror I passed, as if I might find some visible evidence of what was happening to me, some mark that would explain why I wasn't enough. Sophie had noticed something was wrong. She had asked me twice in the past month if I was okay. I had lied to her face both times. "I'm fine, honey. Just tired from work." The ease with which the lies came out of my mouth frightened me. I was becoming a different person. My best friend Rachel had also noticed. We had lunch together every Tuesday, a tradition we'd maintained for a decade. Last week, she had put down her fork and looked at me with concern. "Claire, what's going on with you? You look like you haven't slept in weeks. Talk to me," I had wanted to tell her. The words were right there, pressing against my throat, desperate to get out. But instead, I heard myself say, "I'm fine. Just busy season at work." You know how it is. She hadn't believed me, but she hadn't pushed either. And I had felt the distance growing between us, another casualty of my silence. The worst part was that Michael didn't seem to notice anything was wrong. He went about his life completely unbothered, completely oblivious to the fact that his wife was falling apart. Or maybe he noticed and just didn't care. I wasn't sure which possibility was worse. I had spent countless hours trying to figure out the timeline. The boy looked about 7, which meant the affair had started 11 or 12 years ago. Sophie would have been 3 or 4. Michael and I were supposedly in a good place then. We were happy, or at least I thought we were. How long had it lasted? Was it still going on? Had there been others? Every certainty I had about my life had been thrown into question. I had also spent hours trying to understand why he had stayed. If he loved this other woman enough to have a child with her, why hadn't he left me? Was it because of Sophie? Was it financial? Was he just that good at compartmentalizing his life? Or did he simply not respect me enough to make a choice? The questions circled endlessly in my head, never finding answers. Now, sitting at my kitchen table at 3 a.m., I knew I couldn't carry this alone anymore. The weight of it was going to break me if I didn't do something. I needed help. I needed advice. I needed someone to tell me what to do because I had completely lost my ability to think clearly. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Rachel's number. My thumb hovered over the call button. It was the middle of the night. But Rachel had always told me I could call her any time for anything. I took a deep breath and pressed call. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Claire, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "No," I whispered. "I'm not okay. I need help." There was rustling on the other end, the sound of her sitting up, becoming alert. "I'm listening. Tell me everything." And for the first time in 6 months, I did. The words poured out of me in a jumbled, desperate rush. I told her about the bank statements, about following the money, about the woman in scrubs and the little boy with Michael's eyes. I told her about the 6 months of silence, about the weight I'd been carrying, about how I felt like I was losing my mind. Rachel listened without interrupting. When I finally ran out of words, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Claire," she finally said, her voice gentle but firm. "You need to see a therapist." "Today? This morning? As soon as possible." "I don't need therapy," I protested weakly. "I need to figure out what to do about Michael." "You need both," she said. "But right now you need help processing this. You've been carrying this alone for 6 months. That's not healthy. That's not sustainable. You're not thinking clearly because you're in crisis mode." She was right. I knew she was right. But admitting I needed help felt like admitting defeat. "I'm going to give you the name of my therapist," Rachel continued. "She's excellent. I'm going to text you her number right now, and I want you to call her office the second it opens at 8 a.m. Promise me." "I promise," I whispered. "And Claire, you're going to get through this. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you're going to be okay. You're one of the strongest people I know." "I don't feel strong." "You don't have to feel it for it to be true." We talked for another hour. Rachel helped me make a plan for the immediate future. Call the therapist. Take a personal day from work. Don't make any major decisions while I was this exhausted and emotional. One step at a time. By the time we hung up, the sky was starting to lighten. I felt marginally better. Not good, but better. At least I wasn't alone anymore. At 8:01 a.m., I called the therapist's office and got an appointment for that afternoon. I called my office and told them I needed a personal day. Then I went upstairs and got back into bed, fully clothed, and slept for 4 hours. When I woke up, Michael was already at work and Sophie was at school. The house was quiet. I made myself eat some toast and shower. Then I drove to my therapy appointment. Dr. Patricia Chen was a small woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I liked her immediately. I told her everything, the words coming easier this time, like I had practiced them with Rachel. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied me for a moment. "Claire, you've been experiencing a traumatic event for 6 months without any support," she said. "What you're describing, the anxiety, the insomnia, the inability to function normally, those are all symptoms of prolonged stress and trauma. Your body and mind are trying to tell you something." "What are they trying to tell me?" I asked. "That you can't keep living like this," she said simply. "You've been trying to protect everyone else from pain, your daughter, your husband, even yourself from having to face reality. But you can't protect anyone if you're falling apart. So what do I do? First, we work on getting you stable. You need to take care of yourself before you can deal with this situation effectively. Then we figure out what you actually want. Not what you think you should want. Not what would be easiest for everyone else. What you genuinely want for your life." "I don't know what I want," I admitted. "That's okay," she said. "That's what we're going to figure out together." Over the next 6 weeks, I saw Dr. Chen twice a week. Slowly, painfully, I began to put myself back together. I started sleeping better. I started eating regularly again. Most importantly, I started thinking clearly. And as my mind cleared, I realized something important. I was angry. For 6 months, I had been so focused on the shock and the pain that I hadn't let myself feel angry. But now, sitting in Dr. Chen's office, I felt rage bubbling up from somewhere deep inside me. "I'm so angry," I told her during one session. "I'm angry that he did this. I'm angry that he lied to me for over a decade. I'm angry that he used our money to support his other family. I'm angry that he gets to go about his life like nothing's wrong while I'm falling apart." "I'm so incredibly angry." "Good," Dr. Chen said. "Anger is healthy. Anger is energizing. Anger tells you that a boundary has been violated and you need to take action. What do you want to do with that anger?" "I want to confront him," I said. "I want answers. I want him to know that I know. I want him to see what he's done to me." "Then that's what you should do." With Dr. Chen's help, I planned the confrontation carefully. I wasn't going to do it in a moment of explosive emotion. I was going to do it calmly, clearly when I was ready. I decided to wait until after Sophie's spring break. She was going on a school trip to Washington, D.C., a trip she'd been looking forward to for months. I didn't want to ruin that for her. Whatever was about to happen to our family, she deserved to have that 1 week of normalcy first. The week Sophie was away felt surreal. I went to work. I came home. I had dinner with Michael. We watched television together. We went to bed. And the entire time, I knew I was counting down to an explosion. On the day Sophie was due to return, I took another personal day from work. I spent the morning getting everything ready. I had printed out bank statements with the transfers highlighted. I had screenshots of the Clearwater Consulting LLC registration. I had even driven back to that townhouse and taken photos. Though I felt disgusting doing it, I wasn't going to let him deny it. I wasn't going to let him gaslight me. I was going to present the facts and demand answers. Michael came home at his usual time, around 6 p.m. I was sitting at the dining room table with all the evidence laid out in front of me. "Claire?" he called out. "Where's Sophie?" "Still at school," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "They're running late." "Sit down, Michael. We need to talk." He walked into the dining room, saw the papers on the table, and froze. The color drained from his face. "What is this?" he asked, but his voice was weak. He already knew. "I think you know what this is," I said. "I know about the transfers. I know about Clearwater Consulting. I know about the woman and the boy. I know you have another son. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael sank into a chair, his hands shaking. "How long have you known?" he finally asked. 6 months. He looked up at me, genuine shock on his face. 6 months? And you didn't say anything? I didn't know what to say, I replied. I was trying to process it. I was trying to understand how my husband could have an entire other child that he never told me about. Claire, He started, then stopped. He put his head in his hands. I don't know what to say. Start with the truth, I said. All of it. When did it start? Is it still going on? What else have you been lying about? What came out over the next 2 hours was a story that was somehow both better and worse than I had imagined. Her name was Jennifer. They had met at a tech conference 12 years ago. It had been a brief affair, only a few months. When she got pregnant, she told him. He had panicked. He had wanted her to have an abortion, but she refused. So they came to an arrangement. He would support the child financially, but he wouldn't be involved. She agreed because she wanted to be a mother, and she had the means to raise a child on her own with his help. The boy's name was Tyler. Michael had never met him. Never held him. Never been to a birthday party or a school play. He was just a monthly payment. An obligation. A secret. And you've been paying her with our money, I said. Money I helped earn. Money from our joint account. I know, he said miserably. I'm sorry, you're sorry, I repeated flatly. You had a child with another woman. You've been lying to me for 12 years. You've been stealing from our family to support your other family. And you're sorry, what do you want me to say? He asked, an edge of defensiveness creeping into his voice. It was a mistake. It happened a long time ago. I've been trying to do the right thing by supporting him. The right thing? I felt my anger flare. The right thing would have been to tell me. The right thing would have been to give me a choice about whether I wanted to stay married to someone with another child. The right thing would have been honesty. I was afraid, he admitted. I was afraid you'd leave. I was afraid of losing Sophie. I was afraid of blowing up our life. So instead you blew up my life, I said. You let me live in ignorance for 12 years. You let me trust you. You let me think our marriage was solid. And the entire time, you were keeping this massive secret. Are you going to leave me? He asked quietly. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know anything anymore. Sophie came home an hour later, full of stories about her trip. We both put on smiles and listened to her talk about the monuments and the museums and her friends. Michael and I exchanged glances over her head, both of us knowing that everything was about to change, but neither of us ready to tell her yet. That night, Michael slept in the guest room. It was the first night in 18 years that we hadn't shared a bed. Over the following weeks, the story continued to unravel. I insisted Michael tell me everything, and slowly, painfully, more details emerged. Jennifer hadn't known Michael was married at first. When she found out, after she was already pregnant, she had been furious. But by then, she was committed to having the baby. They had drawn up an informal agreement. He would pay child support and stay out of their lives. She would never contact me or Sophie. It was a clean arrangement. Everyone got what they wanted except me, the person who was kept in the dark. Michael swore there hadn't been others. The affair with Jennifer had scared him straight. He had been faithful before and after. I wanted to believe him, but how could I? Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild, I told Sophie 2 weeks later. It was the hardest conversation of my life. We sat in her room, just the two of us, and I explained that her father had made mistakes before she was born, that he had another son, that we were figuring out what it meant for our family, she cried. She was angry. She asked why no one had told her sooner. She asked if she could meet her half-brother. She asked if we were getting divorced. I don't know yet, I told her honestly. Your dad and I are trying to figure things out. But no matter what happens, we both love you. That will never change. Over time, Sophie adjusted with the resilience of teenagers. She was angry with Michael for a while, but gradually they rebuilt their relationship. She even expressed interest in meeting Tyler, though we agreed to wait until things were more settled. Michael and I tried couples therapy. We sat across from each other in another therapist's office and tried to find our way back to something resembling trust. Some days I thought it might be possible. Other days I knew it wasn't. The question I kept coming back to was this: could I spend the rest of my life with someone who had proven he was capable of sustaining such a profound deception? Not just a one-time mistake, but years of calculated lies? Every time he transferred money on the 15th of the month, he had made a choice to continue lying to me. Every time I asked about our finances, he had made a choice to withhold the truth. That wasn't a moment of weakness. That was a pattern of behavior. Dr. Chen helped me understand that I didn't have to make a decision immediately. I could take my time. I could sit with the uncertainty. But eventually, I realized that sitting with uncertainty was its own kind of decision. By not choosing, I was choosing to stay in limbo. And that wasn't fair to anyone, least of all myself. 8 months after I first found those bank statements, I made my decision. I asked Michael for a divorce. He had been expecting it, I think. He didn't fight me. We agreed to split everything fairly. We agreed to co-parent Sophie. We agreed to handle things as maturely and calmly as possible. The actual process of divorcing was tedious and painful and expensive. But throughout it all, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight I had been carrying was finally lifting. One afternoon during the divorce proceedings, I did something I never thought I would do. I contacted Jennifer. I found her number through the bank records and sent her a simple text. "This is Claire Donovan, Michael's wife. I don't want to cause problems, but I thought you should know that I know about Tyler. If you're ever open to talking, I'd like to understand what happened from your perspective," she responded 3 hours later. "I've been expecting this call for 12 years. Yes, I'm willing to talk. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our houses. It was awkward at first. We were two women connected by one man's mistakes. Sitting across from each other with cups of coffee, neither of us was drinking. But as we talked, I realized Jennifer wasn't the villain I had made her out to be in my head. She'd been young, naive, and lied to. When she discovered Michael was married, she had been devastated. But by then she was pregnant and had made the choice to continue the pregnancy. She had accepted his financial support because raising a child alone was expensive. But she had never asked for more than that. "I'm sorry," she said at one point. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am genuinely sorry. If I had known from the beginning that he was married, I never would have gotten involved with him." "I believe you," I said. And I realized I did. We talked about Tyler. She showed me pictures. He was a handsome kid with Michael's coloring and her smile. He played soccer. He loved science. He wanted to be a marine biologist. "Does he know about us?" I asked. "About Sophie and me?" "He knows he has a half-sister," Jennifer said. "He's asked about meeting her. I've told him that it's complicated, but maybe someday." "Maybe someday," I echoed. As we stood to leave, Jennifer hesitated. "For what it's worth," she said, "I think you're handling this with incredible grace." I don't think I could have done the same. "I don't feel graceful," I admitted. "Most days I feel like I'm barely holding it together." "Then you're a good actor," she said with a sad smile. "Take care of yourself, Claire." "You too," I replied. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday afternoon in October. Michael and I stood in front of a judge, signed papers, and legally ended 18 years of marriage. It was anticlimactic. I had expected to feel more grief or relief or something. Instead, I just felt tired. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment. After the divorce, I had moved out of our family home. It was too big, too full of memories I didn't want anymore. My new place was smaller, simpler. It was just mine. I looked around at the space I was building for myself. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what I had planned for my life. But it was honest. There were no lies here. No secrets. Just me, starting over at 43. Sophie was splitting her time between Michael's house and mine. It was an adjustment, but we were making it work. She was resilient. She was adapting. I was so proud of her. Rachel had stood by me through everything. She had listened to me cry. She had helped me move. She had reminded me that I was going to be okay when I couldn't believe it myself. Dr. Chen had helped me understand that I hadn't failed. My marriage had failed, but I hadn't. There was a difference. I was learning to forgive myself for not seeing the truth sooner, for staying silent for 6 months, for all the ways I had been imperfect through this process. I was also learning that starting over wasn't the end of the world. It was scary, yes. It was painful. But it was also a chance to build something new. Something honest. Something that was entirely my own. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if I would ever trust someone enough to fall in love again. I didn't know if Sophie would someday want a relationship with Tyler. I didn't know how to navigate being a single parent, or how to rebuild my sense of self after having it so thoroughly shaken. But I did know this. I was stronger than I had believed. I had survived something I thought would destroy me. I had made the hardest decision of my life, and I was still standing. The weight of silence had nearly broken me. But in the end, finding my voice had saved me. That night, sitting in my quiet apartment, I opened my laptop. I had been thinking about writing everything down, trying to make sense of it all. Dr. Chen had suggested journaling might help. I started typing. Not for anyone else. Just for me. A record of what I had been through. A way to process the pain and the anger and the eventual acceptance. As I wrote, I realized something. I had spent so much of my life trying to maintain an image, trying to be the perfect wife and mother and friend. I had been so invested in the appearance of happiness that I had missed the reality of unhappiness. But I wasn't doing that anymore. I was done with pretending. I was done with keeping secrets to protect other people's comfort. I was done with carrying weight that wasn't mine to carry. I was learning to live honestly, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. The story of my marriage was over, but the story of my life was still being written. And for the first time in a long time, I was the one holding the pen.